Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest from Kenya, where the United States has warned of possible terror attacks, especially in the capital, Nairobi. Now, the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi has issued a security alert, warning its citizens in the East African country. The U.S. has warned that terrorists may attack with little or no warning, targeting locations including embassies, hotels, restaurants, malls and markets. Terrorists may also attack schools, police stations, places of worship, and other places often visited by tourists and foreigners, according to the U.S. Now, the embassy has further requested U.S. citizens to monitor local media for updates, to stay away from any areas with protests and unrest and other crowded places. The U.S. Embassy in Nairobi says that security concerns have been heightened in proximity to anniversaries of prior terrorist attacks. Now, last week, Kenya was on high alert as the world marked the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. On the 21st of September, Kenya will also mark 11 years of the Westgate Mall attack in Nairobi, where 4 masked gunmen killed at least 68 people in an attack, which also saw a part of the mall collapsing due to fire that was started during the siege. In 1998, the American embassy in Nairobi was hit in a bombing attack by Al-Qaeda. It left over 200 dead, including 12 Americans. The British High Commission in Kenya reinforced the U.S. Embassy's advice. Earlier this week, even the Australian government issued a travel advisory for Kenya, asking citizens to exercise a high degree of caution. Apart from political and economic troubles, terrorism and security crisis are among the top concerns for Kenya. Experts say the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda consider Africa a very fertile ground. Al-Qaeda-affiliated Al-Shabaab continues to pose a major terrorism threat in Kenya, especially along the Kenyan-Somali border, and sporadic terrorist attacks have continued in the region, with IEDs and ambushes against Kenyan forces being the primary means of attack. Kenya does play a leading role in regional counter-terrorism cooperation. Its forces have also responded to numerous terror incidents and have disrupted Al-Shabaab and ISIS attack planning and recruitment. However, the terror threat levels continue to remain high. Now, for more on this, we have with us Dismas Mukua, a political risk analyst who is joining us live from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Now, what specific intelligence or indicators have led to the U.S. issuing this latest terror warning for Kenya?
Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's not unusual for missions based in Kenya to issue all these advisories on security concerns. And I guess they do that because it's a national obligation, because the citizens of the various states expect that the missions abroad, anywhere in the world, will issue advisories looking at the state of security or insecurity in the various states. However, the Kenyan situation is that as soon as the U.S. Embassy in Kenya issued that alert, the local law enforcement officers also came up and said that everything is solid and citizens should not be worried. And as you indicated earlier on, Kenya is an anchor state for both the U.S. as well as China in the region. And Kenya's got a porous border with Somali. So occasionally, because of the porous border, you get people coming in and attempting to stage attacks. But one can confidently say that over the last 10 years, the local law enforcement officers have been able to nip so many of the planned attacks in the bud, and we've not had major incidences of terrorism attacks. However, the local law enforcement officers have indicated in black and white that everything is under control and Kenyans should not be worried.
So that's according to local media. So just how credible and imminent is the threat? And what measures are being taken by the Kenyan authorities to mitigate it?
Well, the law enforcement officers in Kenya, as well as the authorities have gone the extra mile, meaning that we've got specialized units which are responsible for tracking down and which are picking these kind of informations, and the entire population is actually on the alert. So when they smell a rat or when they see people behaving in a
Yes.
manner suggesting that they're likely to be a nuisance to the society, then they alert the law enforcement officers. And as one would expect, the local law enforcement officers as well as the authorities do not disclose their plans in public because the enemy can get to know what the local law authorities as well as the enforcement officers are doing.
Yes.
So they keep everything under wraps, and all that citizens are interested in is in the outcome. And so far we are lucky and we are blessed that we've not had any incidences of terrorism.
Yes. And Dismas, what impact might this kind of warning have on tourism and foreign investment in Kenya, especially in light of the past attacks?
Well, from the time President Ruto took office, he has mentioned Kenya as the natural FDI destination in the region, as the natural foreign direct investment in the region. And the moment you've got this kind of advisories coming up, there is a probability that a number of people who wanted to travel to Kenya for purposes of tourism may review their options, or even people wanted to set up businesses in Kenya may review their options. But when you look at the trend over the last 10 years, there is no evidence to point to the fact that tourists have stopped coming to Kenya because of the travel advisories, or even foreign
Yes.
investors have significantly reduced their investments in Kenya because of these travel
Mm.
advisories. And at some stage, when you get to speak to the missions
Absolutely.
or embassies to the reason where they're issuing the advisories, they say they're doing this one simply because it's a national obligation from their mother countries that are in the unlikely event that there is a
Sure.
terrorist act in Nairobi, and the embassies or missions have not given this kind of advisories, then they will get into trouble when they go back at home. Or rather, the citizens of the countries that have issued the travel advisories have got very valid expectations that wherever they sniff evidence from a distance that there's probability of a terrorist attack, they must, as required by their local
Mm.
laws, to give that advisory. So it does not necessarily mean that there's going to be maybe a terrorist attack, but I think that it's just for the general good of the nation.
Right. Right. Dismas, thank you very much for being with us on First Post Africa and for your valued insights on all the latest coming out of Kenya.